Yo, what is up guys, Ghost here, welcome back to another video. So as you saw in yesterday's video, Temporial has been back. He has been hard at work data mining the Battlefield Labs playtest build of the next coming game, and he's found a lot more stuff than just the jets that we covered in yesterday's video. So there's really quite a lot to go through here, and it is surprising to me like how much stuff is in the build. It's practically the finished game. So we've got details on the Battle Royale mode, there are new game modes, call-ins, map locations, weapons, helicopters, ground vehicles, factions, Portal 2.0. There's a lot of information to get into in this video, so I'm going to try and make this as concise as possible for you guys. So let's just get into it. If you guys do enjoy the content here on the channel and you appreciate this video, a subscription is always massively appreciated. I'll try my best to keep you guys up to date with everything Battlefield 6 and beyond. And as always, thank you guys so much for the support. Really couldn't do it without you, so cheers for that. So let's begin with the massive weapon list here that he's found within the files. So I'm just going to go through these pretty quickly. We're not going to look at each one in detail because you will be happy to hear that there are quite a few more weapons in this game, it looks like, than there were at Battlefield 2042's launch. So, first of all, assault rifles. We have the GP67KORD, we have the ACE-32, a classic there from BF4, the G36, the G3A4, the HK433, the L85A3, so must be an upgraded version, the SCAR-L, and the Tavor 7, not so familiar with that one, but I'm sure you guys are going to go and look some of these up for yourselves. Like I said, this is not going to be like an in-depth weapon video, although if you guys do want to see that, let me know in the comments below. Moving on to carbines, we have the AK-205, the HK417A2, the M4A1, the MSBS Grot B, the QBZ192, the SCAR SC, the SG553R, and the XM7. And then for PDWs or SMGs, which I believe in this game are only going to be usable by the engineer class, or at least that's what it looks like from the playtest, we have the APC-10, the MP5MLI, the MP7A2, the MPX, the P90, UMP40, and then the Vector. Then, LMGs, there's actually quite a few of these, more than I expected. We've got the M240L, the M27IAR, that's been in past Battlefield games before, the M249, the M60E4, the MG4, the RPKM, lots of familiar weapons here to you guys. And then we have the Ultimax 100 and the XM250. For the Recon class then, or presumably for the bolt action snipers, we have the M2010, the MRAD, and then the SV98M, and then for DMRs, we have the M39EMR, the SVCH, and the SVDM. So not really quite as many here in comparison to some of the other weapon classes, but still, you know, a good selection. Shotguns, we have the 18.5 KSK, the 590A1, the KSG12, and the M1014. And then for secondary weapons, finally, we have the 5.7 Mark III, the G22, the M18, the M327 TRR8, the M45A1, and the Raging Hunter, whatever the heck that thing is. So all in all, if my maths is correct, we actually have 47 weapons here. Now, it is worth pointing out, just because he's data mined these weapons, these may not be the actual names of the weapons. Some of them could be placeholder. We don't know if they are the actual names, because if you recall in 2042, they actually used the real-life names of the weapons within the files, which is what Temporial found, but then in-game, they changed the names of the weapons, presumably because they'd have to get some sort of a license that they didn't want to pay for, so are they going to do it for the next game? Who knows? But more importantly, not all of these weapons may be here at launch. Some of these could be coming further down the line, but we've got 47 of them. So if we get, I would say, anywhere around the 40 mark, that is going to be a marked improvement over what we saw in Battlefield 2042. I think that game only shipped with around 20 weapons, and it doesn't even have 47 weapons in it now, after having received several seasons of content and additional patches. So if this is what we're going to launch like in BF6, we're going to be eating good, guys. Okay, moving on, let's talk a little bit about the Battle Royale mode. Now, most of you will have heard that Ripple Effect Studios, who made the Portal mode for 2042, they are working on their own standalone Battlefield project that's going to be accompanying the main game that DICE Stockholm are working on, and it's widely rumoured to be some sort of a Battle Royale, and indeed what Temporial has found here seems to confirm and corroborate that as well. So what he says here, this is taken directly from Twitter. It looks like this was a DM between somebody and Temporial, but they got Temporial's permission to share this. And he says, here is a list of Battle Royale features which are referenced. So solo, duo, trio, and squad. That is presumably how many people you can actually queue up into a game with there. There's going to be insertion via the MH-47 Chinook helicopter. There's going to be parachutes and cutting parachutes, of course. Armor, hard armor, soft armor. There is going to be a free-to-play component to this, which I think is absolutely essential. If you recall in Battlefield 5, the reason Firestorm was largely unsuccessful is because it wasn't free-to-play. Despite the fact the community literally shouted at DICE that it should be, they didn't seem to care. Anyway, this time around it seems like they're going to rectify that. There are going to be missions within this Battle Royale as well, call-ins of course, loot rarity, upgrade kits and weapon upgrades, a shrinking circle, probably fire, so maybe it's going to be like a Firestorm 2.0, and then a second chance and respawn mechanic. So like he says, pretty standard stuff here, nothing really knocking our socks off in terms of Battle Royale, but I think the fact that he's found all of these features definitely does confirm that this is going to be a Battle Royale mode, whether you like it or not. So here's another tweet that he put out. He says he's also seen several callouts here like airstrikes, kinetic strikes, mobile respawns, UAVs and various supply drops for the Battle Royale mode, but he's not sure about if those are going to be in the regular multiplayer, so this doesn't necessarily mean that Commander mode is coming back or any sort of a call-in system like we had in Battlefield 5. Okay, moving on from the Battle Royale mode, let's get into some of the more nitty-gritty of the main Battlefield mode. So first of all, map locations. So some locations apart from Egypt and Gibraltar. So Egypt is the Abbasid map that we saw in the first playtest. Gibraltar is the map that we saw in the second playtest, the most recent one. But apart from that, we've also got Bulgaria, Turkmenistan, Tajikistan, and then the USA, which I know is highly requested, both the East and the West. And he says that one map is actually set in Brooklyn, featuring POIs like the ice cream factory and a fire station. In the background, there might be the collapsed Brooklyn Bridge and the Manhattan skyline. So that already is sounding like a pretty cool map. I'm almost getting like Hardline vibes from this, to be honest with you. It sounds pretty good. Not so long ago, we also saw somebody take to Reddit who took place in a playtest several months ago before we even knew that this was the next Battlefield game. And he said he played a map in the Hollywood Hills. So it would indeed seem like we are going to get maybe several maps based in the USA. Obviously, the US are a big part of NATO, and that is one of the factions in this game as well. Although, by the time this game releases, maybe they won't be. Okay, this is Editing Ghost just chiming in here again. I thought I was done with this video, but apparently not, guys. So, Temporal is back at it again on Twitter, and he's just posted this. He says, there are minimap data entries called Talar Market and Propaganda in the Battlefield playtest files. Not much else to go by. Are they really going to? So, Talar Market is a Battlefield 3 DLC map, and Propaganda was a Battlefield 4 DLC map. So, is this just a coincidence? Are they just using those names for some other reason? Or are these maps going to make a return as part of Portal 2.0? That would be pretty awesome, to be honest. But with that said, let's move on to vehicles. Now, yesterday, we discovered via Temporal's leak all of the new jets that are going to be in the game. So we're going to get the Swedish Gripen, the F-22, the F-16, and then the Su-57 is coming back for the Russian side. I guess the Pax Armata side, the Coalition. And if you guys want more details on that, again, I will go and link that video up. But since we talked about it in depth yesterday, I'm not going to go too much into it here. But what we do now have as well are the helicopters. So first of all, we have the AH-64E, and this is your good old Apache helicopter. It comes in pretty much every modern Battlefield game. Wouldn't really be Battlefield without it, so always good to see that there. Then we have the Eurocopter, and he says with passive abilities like anti-radar, ground radar, heavy weapons, or improved armor. So I assume he's talking about the Eurocopter Tiger here, which I believe is owned by Airbus, correct me if I'm wrong. Then for scout helicopters, we have the AH-6M and the MH-6M, and then for transports we have the UH-60, aka the Black Hawk. Now, one thing I really wanted to see come back in this game was naval warfare. That was really cool in Battlefield 4. Unfortunately, when asked about this, Temporal says, so far, I was only able to spot a rib boat, which does seem strange because he's found it would appear almost every other vehicle in the game. So if all he's found for naval combat is a rib boat, maybe that does indeed mean that naval combat is not going to be coming in Battlefield 6. or perhaps it's going to be coming later on in one of the seasons. That will remain to be seen. So next up we have the ground vehicles. So for main battle tanks we have the Abrams and the Leopard. For the AA we have the Gepard. It's the Cheetah basically. It's a German AA tank, I believe. Gepard or Gepard is German for cheetah, presumably. Then for the IFVs, we have the Bradley and the CV90. The CV90, of course, being another Swedish vehicle, so this is like the second one we've seen so far after the Gripen, the jet. And then here for APCs, we actually have quite an interesting one, the Marauder, which I believe is a South African vehicle. So presumably they are maybe going to be part of the Pax Armata of the Coalition. That also gives us a bit of an insight to some of the factions we're going to be using there. Light transport, we have the Flyer 60 and the Vector. I don't know what the Vector is, but the Flyer 60 is built in the US. And then for miscellaneous here, we have quad bikes, dirt bikes, and golf carts. So again, it sounds like one of these maps is going to take place in or around a golf course. I'm guessing this may be in the US somewhere. Possibly the Hollywood Hills. So since this has given us a little bit of insight into the two factions here, Temporal also confirms here that in the files, the two factions are not regarded as NATO and the Pax Armata. A lot of people have been assuming that Pax Armata is a PMC. He says in the files it's just called Alliance versus Coalition. So Pax Armata doesn't necessarily have to be in PNC, it's just a coalition of countries. So we don't really know which countries are going to be in there, presumably Russia, and then apart from that, we'll just have to see. He also mentions right here that there is apparently a lot of Portal or Portal Next data. I believe it was Flagfire who already confirmed that DICE have actually told him that Portal is going to be coming back in the next game. So that is confirmed. What it's going to look like, we don't really know yet, like how many factions are there going to be in there. It sounds like DICE are really biting off quite a lot of stuff, and what I'm about to show you next is going to add to that even more. So it looks like they're toying with a completely new game mode. So apparently this new mode is going to be called the Gauntlet, or just simply Gauntlet, and this is what Temporal has to say about it. It's an elimination mode for smaller teams, so solo, duo, trio, and squad, featuring various mission types, circuit, contract, decryption, extraction, heist, rodeo, standoff, vendetta, and wreckage. So you're doing an extraction mission, and then you're doing a round of capture the flag, and after that maybe killing a HVT or a high value target and so on. After each mission, only a certain number of teams advance to the next round, not sure about the exact procedure or numbers. So that sort of sounds like it could be something like the finals where you take place in a tournament. It's maybe not necessarily going to be player versus player, maybe player versus environment. The map appears to be the same as the Battle Royale, with points of interest like crash site, and judging by the assets, that is most likely a crashed C-17, downtown, main street, marina, military base, including R&D and storage, and a tech center. So it says this is probably also involving some kind of a free-to-play approach. So this is not the Battle Royale, guys. This is something separate from the Battle Royale, but it's going to be on the same Battle Royale map, which, if we know those kind of game modes correctly, is assumedly going to be somewhat larger than even some of the biggest maps that we know from Battlefield. So when DICE started talking about this Battlefield universe, it sounds like maybe this is what they're referring to. So they're doing, a campaign, single-player campaign, classic multiplayer, of course, with its myriad number of different maps, hopefully at least, bunch of different weapons, different game modes. Then we've got the Battle Royale, which Ripple Effect are making. Then we've got the Gauntlet, and maybe even a new version of Portal as well, Portal 2.0. This sounds like there's going to be like 5 different experiences here. All I hope is that, all of these resources that they're directing to these different game modes and facets, I just hope it's not going to come back to bite them, and a lot of players simply aren't going to play them. If I look at Battlefield 4, and I think DICE are somewhat guilty of this in general, I would say they make too many game modes. They should really focus on what works well, which really they've proven to themselves that is Conquest, that is Rush, that is Breakthrough. Take those 3 game modes, and then I would say design maps specifically around them. Instead of designing all of the maps around Breakthrough or all of them around Conquest, and then trying to shoehorn the other game modes in there by faffing about with them a little bit, just make a map and say, okay, this is going to be like a Breakthrough only map. But this may also split the player base quite a lot. That's something that people in the past were worried about with Premium, is that some people had Premium and some people didn't. And we've also seen this, like I mentioned before, with Warzone and Call of Duty. Some people are playing the Battle Royale, other people are playing the base game. And are we going to see the same thing happen with Battlefield here? You know, we're going to have some people playing the core game, some of them in Portal making, you know, their own experiences, perhaps with a server browser, and then some people in this Battle Royale mode as well, or this Gauntlet game mode, which is sounding like a PvE experience. And then you've also got the single player on top of that, which I guess is not really going to be vying for people's attention. It's more something you experience and then you move on. But you get my point, right? By all means, guys, let me know what you think about this all below. We have made it to the end of the video. I know this was a very long one, but Temporal, man, he just keeps on pumping out the information. So give yourselves a pat on the back if you made it to the end. Thank you, as always, guys, for watching. If you did enjoy the video, leaving a like below is massively appreciated, as is subscribing to the channel to keep up to date with more Battlefield. And I will see you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye-bye.